Hi friends, and welcome back to another video. In this video we are going to look at the four built-in functions. They are arrange, linspace, ones and zeros. We will look at them one by one starting from arrange. The arrange function is used to create an array of evenly spaced values where it takes three parameters. They are start, stop and step. Here the stop value is mandatory and start is by default set to 0 and step is by default 1. So now let's try our arrange function np.arange. Now I'm going to just use the stop value, that is 6, and here I got my array. So the stop value works as an open interval and so we get the values till 5. And now let's use the start and stop values np.arange. Now let's say you want the values from 3 to 10. In order to do that, I will pass my starting value as 3 and stop value to be 11 so that I get the values till 10. And now let's use the step parameter. The step parameter is used to create even spaces between our values. And now let's say you want the even values from 2 to 50. So in order to do that, we use our step parameter np.arange, where I am taking my starting value to be 2, my ending value to be 51 and the step to be 2. And here I got it. Now let's move on to our second function, that is linspace. Linspace is used to create evenly spaced values between two numbers. So the parameters that linspace takes are start, stop, the number of evenly spaced points we need, the endpoint and the return step. The endpoint and the return step parameters are a boolean values where they take the default values true and false respectively, and the number by default is 50 and the start and stop values are mandatory. So np.linspace, where I am taking the values from 1 to 10 and I am not using the remaining parameters for now. And when I run it, here I got 50 evenly spaced values from 1 to 10. And now let's say you want only the 20 values. In order to do that, I will change the num parameter to 20. And here it is. And now let's say you want these 20 values, but you don't want the endpoint to be 10. In order to do that, we will use our endpoint parameter np.linspace, where I'm taking the values from 1 to 10 and I need 20 values, but I don't want my endpoint to be 10. So in order to do that, I will change it to false. And here you can see the difference. And finally, let's create one complex linspace array. So np.linspace, and I'm taking the values from 1 to 50 and I am taking 75 values, and then I am taking the endpoint to be false. And when I run it, n, and here I got those 75 values. Now here is a problem. You don't know what is the difference between these two values and these two values. That is, you don't know the space between two values here. So in order to do that, we use our parameter return step. So ret step, by default it is set to false, and now let's set to true. And when we run it, so here we got our return step value. That is, the space between these two values is 0.65 and the number of 3's here. So finally, let's look at our functions ones and zeros. The ones and zeros function pretty much behave like the same, as they take a single parameter, that is the shape of your array you want. So when you use the ones parameter, you get an array of ones filled in it, and when you use your zeros function, it gives you an array of zeros filled in. So now let's try them out. Let's take np.ones, and in here we will pass the value 5. which will return us a 1D array, and here we got it. And we can also create a 2D array. So in order to do that, you must pass in a tuple, and let's say you want a 2D array of shape 2, 4, and here it is. So here you can notice that by default they are floating values, and in order to change that, we can also use the t-type parameter and change it to int, and here we got the integer values now. And now let's try for zeros. So np dot zeros, and let me take a 1D array of size 3, and here I got it. And now let's create a complicated 3D array, that is np dot zeros, and in which I'm going to pass a tuple where I'm going to pass 3 values. So let's take 5, 6 and 3. This is my 3D array, and when we run it, and here it is. So in order to create the 3D array manually, it is a bit more tougher, but rather using these functions, it is pretty much easier. And yeah, that's all for today in this video. And in this video, we looked at the 4 built-in functions in our NumPy arrays. They are arange, linspace, zeros and ones. Thanks for watching, and let's meet in the next video.